Nature of communication. Communication looks simple and almost effortless, especially when it goes smoothly. But every communicative exchange is affected by principles that are not always apparent. Communication is unavoidable. Facial expressions, posture, gesture, clothing, etc., offer cues about our attitudes. The notion that we are always communicating means we send messages even by our absence. Failing to show up at an event or leaving the room suggests meaning to others. Because communication is unavoidable, it is essential to consider the unintentional messages you send. Communication is strategic. Almost all communication is aimed at achieving goals. On the job, the most obvious type is instrumental communication, messages aimed at accomplishing the task at hand. A second set of goals involves relational communication, or messages that shape and reflect the way people regard each other. Building positive relationships is not just about being sociable. A positive climate in the workplace also helps accomplish instrumental goals. Virtually all messages contain both instrumental and relational dimensions. And then a third, less obvious reason we communicate involves identity management, which is the practice of presenting yourself in ways that produce a preferred image and distinctive sense of self. Continuing on, communication is irreversible. At one time or another, everyone has wished they could take back words they uttered. Unfortunately, that is not possible. Communication is also a process. It is not accurate to talk about an act of communication, as if sending or receiving a message were an isolated event. Rather, every communication event needs to be examined as part of its communication context. Communication is also not a panacea. Although communication can certainly smooth out the bumps and straighten the road to success, misunderstandings may still occur. Even effective communication cannot solve all problems. In some situations, the parties may understand one another perfectly, yet still disagree. These limitations are important to understand as you begin to study communication on the job. No matter what the setting is or how many people are involved, all communication consists of the same elements. Understanding those elements can help explain what happens when one person tries to express an idea to others. It can also offer clues about why some of these attempts succeed and others fail. Communication process begins with a sender. A sender is someone who transmits a message, either intentionally or unintentionally. A message is any symbol or behavior from which others create meaning or that triggers a response. The sender must choose specific words or nonverbal methods to send an intentional message. This activity is called encoding. The channel is the method of medium used to deliver a message. Even when a message reaches its intended receiver intact, there is no guarantee it will be understood as the sender intended it to be. The receiver must still attach meaning to the words or behavior. Receivers actively interpret and respond to the messages they have received, both unintentionally and intentionally. The process of a receiver attaching meaning to a message is called decoding. The receiver's discernible response to a sender's message is called feedback. Some feedback is nonverbal, smiles, sighs, a frown, and so on. Sometimes it is verbal, as when you react to a colleague's ideas with questions or comments. Feedback can also be written, as when you respond by writing an email to your coworker. In many cases, the lack of a message is also a type of feedback. Feedback helps us in the process of building shared meaning when communicating. However, one of the greatest barriers to effective communication is noise. Noise is any factor that interferes with the message or the exchanges of messages. New technologies have given business people a wide range of choices for communication than ever before. One way to start evaluating these choices is to consider how each channel's different characteristics match up with your communication goals. Richness refers to the amount of information that can be transmitted using a given channel. Three aspects determine the richness of a channel: whether it can handle many types of cues at once, whether it allows for quick feedback from both senders and receivers, and whether it allows for a personal focus. Ideally, when announcing an important decision that may affect employees, you would select a rich channel to convey this information. Face-to-face communication would likely be preferred in such a situation because it allows for the communication and decoding of verbal and nonverbal cues, simultaneous feedback, and a personal focus. The speed of the channel refers to how quickly the exchange of messages occurs. High-speed or instantaneous channels support synchronous communication. They include face-to-face conversations, video chat, and telephone conversations. A key benefit of synchronous channels is immediate feedback as possible. Another option is asynchronous communication, which occurs through channels such as email, inter-office memos, and voicemail. In these low-speed channels, there is a lag between the transmission and reception of messages. Control refers to the degree to which you can manage the communication process. Of course, because communication is a two-way process, you can never have complete control over it. Even so, different channels offer different types of control. In written channels, such as email and social media posts, you can exert more control over how you encode a message because you will be able to write, proofread, and edit as many times as you need until you get exactly the way you want it. In contrast, in a face-to-face channel, you have much more control over the receiver's attention. You can reduce noise, interpret nonverbal signals of understanding, or even explicitly ask the sender to pay more attention to your message. In general, channels that utilize oral communication, face-to-face, telephone, video conference, are best for communicating messages that have a personal dimension. These types of channels are also best for ideas that have a strong need for visual support in the form of demonstration, photo, slides, and so on. Written communication works well when you want your message to have a relatively formal tone. Handwritten notes of thanks or sympathy also express thoughtfulness and add a personal touch that is also lost in most electronic messages. Besides message-related considerations, the culture of the organization in which you work for may favor some communication channels over others. For example, the computer support staff members in some organizations respond to emails, while in other companies, a phone call to the help desk is the best way to get a quick response. In some cases, it is wise to send a message using more than one channel. For example, you could follow a letter, fax, or email message with a phone call. This redundancy capitalizes on the diverse strengths of the various channels and boosts the odds of getting your desired message across. Knowing how to use and choose the optimal channel can have a strong impact on your career.